Good morning. My name is Kasia Reyes. This is Lilliana, Mendoza, and Janelda, Cruz. This summer we're working with Dr. Janelda at the Department of Applied Psychology at NYU. Today we are presenting our work on Coherence and Cohesion of Latino children's narratives. Before we begin, we would like to thank the Latino Family Involvement Project LFIP at NYU, Dr. Juliana Wellesley, Adina Sheik, Children, Families, and Head Starts participating in the project, funding agencies of the LFIP, HCS staff, and viewers. The LFIP, the project we work on at NYU is called LFIP, which stands for the Latino Family Involvement Project. This study is conducted by Drs. Melzi and Dr. Christine McWayne at Tufts University. What you are seeing are actual pictures of the LFIP research team, which we are now a part of. So what is the goal of the LFIP? The goal of the project is to understand Latino parents' unique conceptualization of family involvement in their children's early educational experiences. Family involvement is the many ways that children participate and support children's educational endeavors. How families are involved help children develop skills that are essential to their growth as children and as adults. In fact, family involvement has been identified as a protective factor against school failure for children of all ages. This project has collected data from 650 English-speaking and Spanish-speaking Latino Head Start families. During the summer, the main tasks we were involved in included data entry and transcription of child language data. Our project focused on the transcription of child language data. Children's narrative skills. Children language data we transcribe is in the form of narratives. Narratives is just a technical term for factual and fictional stories. Storytelling, bedtime stories, these are all examples that children are exposed to on a regular basis. Narrative abilities develop during the early preschool years as children engage in conversations with others such as their parents or their teachers. For example, when children say things like once upon a time or in this story, they are all examples of how children are picking up this skill. To tell a story successfully, 4 skills need to be developed. Structural knowledge, or how to put the pieces together. Content knowledge, being able to keep information in memory. Linguistic knowledge, having enough vocabulary and grammar to put the story together. And contextual knowledge, being able to read your audience or having social skills. Children grow and learn from the environment that surrounds them. They pick up patterns such as speaking and the way they act from people surrounding them who are most influential in their young lives. For this reason, research shows that children of different ethnic backgrounds have different ways of telling a story. Narrative, coherence, and cohesion. As I mentioned in our title, for our project we chose to focus on narrative, cohesion, and coherence. Coherence is an ability that children pick up and develop further as they get older. Children learn basic structures of storytelling that is in the story, so that in their story there's a beginning, middle, and end. These are basic structures that help the child so they can organize a series of events into a coherent story. So part of the structural knowledge is knowing how to compose a story or knowing where to put the pieces of information. This is a necessary skill because coherence is about being able to narrate so the listener is able to comprehend it. Basically, coherence helps develop a sense of order and fluidity in order to tell a story. Coherence is also related to a children's linguistic knowledge. As children's vocabulary expand, they are more able to learn transition words. And most of the words that are common at a preschool age are and then, in Spanish, después and y. During the preschool years, they start to have more and more opportunities to interact with children their own age as well as adults. During these interactions, children become accustomed to sharing stories and begin to develop a greater sense of storytelling and ability to have coherence and cohesion. As children get older, they are able to draw on their own experiences to share stories that are richer in detail and more coherent.
I will study research questions. For our project, we came up with 3 research questions. The first one, what are the characteristics of Latino Head Start children's stories? There are 3 types of characteristics we looked at. The first, general structure, and this is basically asking the question of what did the child do when given a storybook, whether he or she told the story or not. The next is coherence. Here we figured out onto what level was the narrative coherent, concentrating on what main events was the child able to tell. The third is cohesion, which is basically analyzing how the child was able to put the story together, if there was any use of certain linguistic skills or any keywords, such as a classical ending or an opening to a story, like once upon a time or the end. The second research question focuses on if there are any differences in how well children are able to narrate stories based on their ages. And the last focuses if there are any distinctions on how well they are able to narrate the story independently, depending on their gender. Unfortunately, up to this point, we have only gone through a certain amount of data, so we aren't able to answer and focus completely on the second and third question. But for the final poster that we have due for, at the end of the summer, we'll have those ready. So for now, we're just going to focus on the first question. Participants and background information. The data that we are using for our project mainly came from one of the Head Start sites used in the LFIP, Bilingual Head Start Center in East Harlem. So the children were both narrating in Spanish and English. In terms of the data we have quoted today, the majority of the children were from Mexican background, which as you can see is 78%. Children were between the ages of children were between the ages of 3 and 5, with a mean age of 52 months, which is approximately 4.5 years old. 67% of the children were male. And as we continue to transcribe and code, hopefully we can have a more balance between the genders so that we have more variation and we're able to answer the rest of the research questions. And approximately half of the mothers had elementary school education or less, which is 56%. And this is important because if the mother isn't as ready in schooling, like if they aren't as as high in education and they aren't able to expose their child to any literature, so the only way for them to learn and develop these linguistic skills that they need is until they start preschool. Procedure. As a battery part of our test, children were asked to narrate a wordless book or Where Are You? So the sample of the kids, we had to use a fixed book. So this is the book that we use for all the children, so we can keep track of our data. And the wordless book is about a boy and his dog who are looking for a frog that has escaped from the jar. Throughout the story, there are several main and key points that occur, like the dog falling, the boy being surprised, and all that. And these are the big main events that the children have to notice on each picture. And this is basically what we're looking for, if they mention it or not. This book was selected since it is frequently used in narrative research with speakers of various languages. These narratives were then recorded and transcribed, and that's how we analyze our data after that. Coding. Our coding was conducted at 3 levels. The first is general structural coding to determine the structural pattern of the whole narrative, and this was basically answered by using the independence of reading checklist, which is we rated the narratives from 1 to 6. 1 being that the child 1, 2, 3, and 6. The child did not tell the story, and they basically focused on counting or simply refusing to tell the story. And then 4 and 5, the child told the story, and it's either they completely did it independently or with the help of the investigator, the person interviewing them. Coherence coding, this is what we use. This is the checklist that we use here. And this was well, right now, this one has a yes or no column, but we decided to add a partly because some of the children, they wouldn't say the exact same phrases like here. So some of the children didn't know what the word jar meant, so they would just say, oh, the frog isn't there. So then we had to give them credit for that. We couldn't just mark it as a no. Use of cohesive devices. The cohesive devices are important keywords that the children tend to say a lot. And this is what weaves the stories and the events together. Like they don't just simply say, oh, the dog is here, the frog ran away or whatever. And so they tend to say, oh, the frog fell and then something happened. So, and also the use of a past and present tense. Past tense is usually when the child knows that the story is a story and it's supposed to be told in the past tense. And present tense, the child is basically focusing on describing what he or she sees on the pages, and that's not a story.
Our accomplishments in future steps are as follows. First of all, we have transcribed 29 from 30 narratives. We have established reliability on coherent scoring. For those who don't know what reliability refers to, it refers to keeping a similar mindset while coding and coding and reading the narratives. Based on the integrated agreement on the transcript we have completed until today, our reliability is 83%. In other words, 83% of the time we agree. Also, we had an integrated agreement of 50% on structural coding reliability, which means we were not successful establishing reliability at all. Our future steps include completing transcribing until we have the amount of 30 narratives, establish reliability on structural coding so that we can have more exact results, code all 30 transcripts, analyze data, and look for the answers to the remaining research questions, and finally, summarize our work with the purpose of making a presentation poster as our final project. These are our references.